My name is Yvette Montero Salvatico, and I'm with Kedge and the Future School. I'm really excited to bring you another webcast in our series. Every month, we take a look at a wicked opportunity, and we think about how we can migrate to a more transformational future. And every month, at the end of the month, we get to our create phase. And we love this time because we get to spend some quality time with a Foresight professional in the field, in the wild, as they say, who is actually making Foresight work and fueling their lives and their profession with Foresight. And we know how valuable these conversations are to this community. So we're really excited to continue to bring them to you. Today, I am super excited to be with Dawn LaValle. I'm going to read her bio here just so that I don't miss any of the greatness. Dawn is the director of the Division of Library Development for the Connecticut State Library. But she's so much more. She's recognized she's a recognized Aspen Re-Envisioning Public Libraries expert, of course, a certified Foresight practitioner, a Disruption Navigator for libraries. She is so amazing, and I can't wait to dive into some of the work that, Dawn, you've done in the past, recently, in partnership with Kedge and the Future School. You've really, of all of the, I think, alumni that we have an opportunity to interact with, I think if I had to choose one person who I'm not, and I didn't even tell Dawn I was going to say this, so we'll see her actual reaction right now. If I was going to hold someone up as the poster child of democratizing the future and democratizing Foresight, I would say it's Dawn, because of the work that she's done, not only for herself and for her organization, but for the broader librarian community globally. So really excited, Dawn, to have a chance to chat with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, as they say.
Oh, my pleasure. And I'm turning red right now with embarrassment.
I hate it when people read my bio, so I'm really sorry that I did that to you. But I also don't want to shortchange the incredible work that you've done. And how long have we sort of been in each other's circles? I'm trying to remember. When was it that you first got exposed to Foresight and futures thinking? And then how did we get in the same ecosystem? Remind me.
So my partner in crime, Peggy Cadigan, who's the Deputy Director for Innovation and Outreach at the New Jersey State Library, we have been tossing around design thinking and other, things like that for quite some time. But it was 2017 at the Futures Conference, sponsored by the New Jersey State Library, the Connecticut State Library, and a few other state libraries, that I had the opportunity and pleasure of meeting Nicole. And that just I was like, oh my goodness, I need this. I need to be involved in this somehow. And then, I just kind of stalked you guys and figured out how I could get involved, and ta-da.
The rest, as they say, is history. Exactly. I love those stories. And that particular story is really, really special because we were sort of quintessentially double booked during that time period for that great conference. And I remember having to have the conversation with Peggy, hey, Peggy, I know you saw me previously and you wanted me to come, but I promise you, you're going to love Dawn. You're going to love Nicole. And what's funny is that I think she really, really loved Nicole way more than me. And so I feel like at some point she owes me I don't know, a bouquet of flowers because I sent Nicole, and it was a perfect fit because Nicole Baker Rosa on our team is truly a lover of libraries and librarian, and she's so taken by the entire community now. And I feel like you all have sort of adopted her as one of your own in many ways.
She's an honorary librarian.
Oh my gosh, she's going to be super psyched. Timestamp. We got to look at the timestamp. Come back. Yeah, and it's great because I think a lot of folks have a similar experience. They maybe get exposed to strategic foresight at a conference or at a training session, and they are forever changed. And you almost feel like, where has this been all my life? Did you sort of feel that way?
Absolutely. And I think, my aha moment was when the future school that I attended, the Detroit cohort, and I'm sitting in a room with all these amazing people, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there are strategists here, there's just designers, and I'm a librarian. And they're like, I was getting people coming up to me and saying, "You're a librarian?" And I'm like, yeah. So, but it was truly amazing that here I am sitting in this room of amazing people.
Yeah.
And they're looking at me like, "Oh my God, you're a librarian."
Yeah. It's so great. I mean, I think Foresight's the great unifier.
Exactly.
You know, no two people have the same past or even the same present. We're not even experienced 2020 the same way. I love someone said, we're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same ocean right now, but we all have very different boats. But the future to me is so powerful because it's the one place that there can be inclusivity and equity, and we can co-create that future together. And I do think the community of people within the future school and just abroad, just broadly, people that are sort of taken or interested or passionate about futures thinking and strategic foresight are a powerful community. We haven't even quite seen or scratched the surface of the power that could be unleashed by people who have this type of mindset, and even more so the people that have been trained. I mean, don't you think?
Well, absolutely. And I think, two words you just said, inclusivity and equity. That's what libraries are all about. Libraries are, we always say we're the last bastions of democracy on the face of the earth because everybody is welcome from birth to death. And librarians are the natural navigators of the worlds that many people are living in.
Wow.
And we have the opportunities to, we always say we're on the cutting edge of new technologies. Go to the library and experience a makerspace. Go to the library and go to the business incubator. Go to the library and go to the innovation hub. But librarians have always been, we've always welcomed everybody. We've always created that experience, and we're always looking for the next experience for our patrons, because we are the community. We are the community anchors. We're the community catalysts, and everything we do is about serving our communities, our immediate communities and our broad communities.
It's powerful. You all are also sort of a bridge because, like you said, you meet people where they are, and everyone is welcome within the library. And I think that's such a powerful thing. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited that you all have decided to really fuel your work with Foresight. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit, because I think it would be interesting for our audience to hear how design thinking sort of played into our current project together, and how we're working together now in terms of offering training and foresight frameworks to the broader library community.
Well, it's the American Library Association came out with a program years ago called Transformation for Libraries, and transforming libraries. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, who's going to do that? When we went to library school, I didn't have a creativity. I didn't not have a design thinking class on how to really take those skills. So we thought about, okay, so we need to transform our libraries. We need to transform our librarians. And so we applied for an Institute of Museums and Library Services grant, which is actually right now funding the Future School, because in order to transform libraries, you have to transform the librarians. You have to change their mindsets. You have to change their perspectives of how they're looking at things, different ways of looking at things. And we just recently finished the pilot here in Connecticut and it was just amazing. For our librarians to actually experience what I've experienced. And the one quote I'm going to share with you is, I've been spending almost 3 years now talking about foresight. And one librarian said to me, she goes, "Now I know you're not crazy. It always sounded like you were on drugs when you were talking about this." And I'm like, thank you.
Quite an endorsement. Thank you so much.
But it was, once they really went through the whole process, and it really allowed, taking away those biases, taking away that educated. Librarians do think we know everything, because in many ways we do, but it was the opportunity I felt like I was opening eyes and minds. you know, giving that opportunity. And this is certainly something why we're pursuing it. We're going to Minnesota, we're going to Hawaii, we're going to Colorado, we're going to Maryland, we're going to Florida. We're spreading, it's almost like I'm bringing the cult to all these different states, because I just feel it's so incredible. This is a skill set that librarians need, because our futures are changing so rapidly. And, you know, for example, the COVID-19, libraries closed. Well, no, we weren't closed. We moved everything online. We're doing virtual programming. We're doing virtual story times. We're in people's lives. But if we have had this skill set of natural foresight earlier, we would have been much better prepared. So that's you know, and it's not just within our library community, it's all of our partners. You know, we had our executive director from the Connecticut Education Network. And he's like, I need to bring this to my schools. So we're kind of like, we're just kind of like spreading all the word and, you know, just kind of gathering everybody into our cult of natural foresight.
Is that how you would define sort of democratizing foresight? Is it, you know, equipping all of these folks, not just librarians, but all of the partners within the ecosystem?
Oh, absolutely. I think because it's so important, and that's why we brought the executive director, Doug Casey, in from CEN, because he is a critical partner, and he's a critical partner specifically for bridging the digital gap, the digital inclusivity for students.
Which is like, it was already critical. Can I just say it was already critical? But if you aren't on we have a digital divide bandwagon right now with all of this COVID thing, you're living under a rock right now, because what is happening right now is a travesty to children in, you know, marginalized communities and low socioeconomic. And it's not, you know, it's not just the communities you're thinking of. Access to reliable internet is so, you know, ridiculously, you know, people just wouldn't believe how hard it is in the US to have access to reliable, fast internet. It's just awful what we've done with these communities. And now that students have to learn in many cases from home and people are working from home, it's just highlighted this issue.
So libraries always knew there was that gap, because we had students come into the libraries after school to do their homework because they did not have internet or devices at home. We had people come into libraries to fill out their application forms for benefits or fill out their applications for jobs. What COVID-19 exposed was it exposed the ugliness and how you know, cataclysmic the digital gap is. And I think I said a while ago, I heard this word in one of our sessions, but I think it's not just, we have digital refugees, people that are completely left out of the economy. Because they just have no connection. So libraries have always been that one entity in the community. It's not schools. It's not community centers. It's not anything else. Public libraries have the access and the resources to connect people to. Basically, right now it's their livelihoods, and right now across the country we've been, you know, handing out Chromebooks and hotspots. It's not just about that though. It's about literacy. It's about the digital literacy of understanding how to go on, and so libraries we're still there, and we're still doing it. We're doing it outside, but it's just so critically important for people to understand that. Yeah, this has been around for a long time, and it's not just urban areas, it's rural areas. It's areas of affluence that just do not have good fiber.
Yeah. But I mean, it's such an important point. It's like, it's not enough to just, you know, if we could, you know, snap our fingers and use the satellite technology or what have you to give, you know, reliable internet to everyone, we would still have a good swath of our population left behind because they don't have the skills and the mindset. And what I love about strategic foresight that I think a lot of people maybe don't realize is that it's really a change management software. Mm-hmm. And so today it's, you know, because I remember when we first started working, even back in the day when we started working with the Walt Disney Company, after I had left Disney and we were working as vendors, as contractors and partners, I remember being brought into a project, and the major issue for them is how do we get our, older employees to feel comfortable using technology. Basically, they wanted to know how to get their boomers to use the iPad, because this was back a ways back. And so what we help them to understand is that foresight is the key to unlock that current issue, as well as the 10 that follow it. So how do you prepare your organization, but also your community at large, to be ready for this current wave, but the waves that follow? Because it's not going to stop, right? I mean, yes, we've had, I hope this year never happens again, for sure. But the incredible change and disruption that we're seeing is not something new. And you all have been, on the front lines of that.
Exactly. And I've had all my staff trained in natural foresight, and because we are truly operationalizing it within not just my division, but within, because we work with statewide services, and we have we're basically working with the entire state. So we are using it to really approach problem solving, to approach issues. One of our main issues right now is resource sharing. And it's resource sharing, not just in the state of Connecticut, but, across the country. So we've used this whole process. We've actually created, we did an exercise and created 3 scenarios for resource sharing for Connecticut going forward. Awesome. And we're going to be presenting that at our state library board and across the state. But, and using the skills, I mean, my staff and a few of our, our committee members were so excited about it. And you can actually visualize. You can visualize the opportunities and the challenges. And the most exciting thing that, my one team that was working on the fortress, they were like, this is not negative. This is so positive. Look at they came up with all these amazing ways that they can, take this particular scenario and make it positive. So by actually demonstrating the actual process, by actually showing them product, by having my staff who consult around the state, who have the same mindset going forward. When we talk about libraries are very big into strategic planning, and we're saying we're moving them away from that, and really not just them, but their organizations, their towns, and their stakeholder groups, that there's a better way to do this.
Wow, that's so exciting. I just got chills. I mean, really touch on so many incredible characteristics of foresight that many people that are maybe new to the field don't realize are core aspects. Like one in particular is the participatory nature of foresight, and the fact that, again, it's so perfect for libraries, but you really have the opportunity to bring people in on the conversation. I love that you all are using scenarios, but I also love that it sounds like you're trying to use these tools and methodology and this mindset every day for decision making. And I think that's critical. This isn't a once a year app that we download to do our long-term plan. It's something we should live and breathe every day, right?
Exactly. And that's what we're doing. My staff, because of the scope and diversity of what they do, from my my consultant who does our fiber grants, and bringing fiber to our construction grants, to our professional development, to it's just everything that we do, the way we approach it is a different perspective, which I think is more, it's going to make us a better organization.
Yeah.
And our goal is in bringing this not just to our organization, but across the country. We're working with all these other state libraries that see the value of this.
That's so awesome.
And the opportunity, and it's something that, I feel strongly that should be a required professional development opportunity for librarians in the professions. And it's not just public librarians. We have academic librarians, we have special librarians. We have school librarians who are involved in this. So it's almost, to me, it's transforming, we've always been there. This is just kind of pushing our profession over the edge.
Yeah. It's so interesting because it is, in hindsight, sort of a perfect match. these stewards of the community, this nucleus of the community, this physical and digital manifestation of the present, but also the bridge to the future. It is, it's almost, it's not surprising at this point to say, yeah, librarians should be futurists, like every single one of them.
I think there's a lot of secret futurists in librarians, sure. And this is just that opportunity to like drag it out of them and
formalize it, right? So we often say that the folks that are initially attracted to Foresight, to our programs, or to the field in general, probably think this way already. They just have sort of a natural ability, which is, not uncommon. But what they lack is a repeatable framework to bring others along, and to make it, a truly repeatable process that can be integrated into our organizations and our institutions. And so it sounds like that's sort of what's being unlocked within the librarian team, not only within the Connecticut State Library, but as you said, across the United States.
Absolutely. And it's, the value in it is just, it's recognizing a trait and capitalizing on it. Yeah. Because it's just the nature of libraries. We've always had to be, if I'm not dating myself here, it was when I was a tiny little kid, when they first, CD-ROMs or CDs, music CDs. So where do you go to see that, find that new technology and try that new technology out? Almost every library in the country has almost like a petting zoo of new technologies, new ways of doing things.
Awesome.
So we've been there, and it's just we've always struggled with relevancy. The librarian's over. Library, we don't need the library any longer. I see this also as a valuable process by which to just solidify the incredible importance of libraries in our democracy.
That's fantastic. And it leads me to ask you about the future and the future of libraries. As someone who is actively leading the charge in creating the future of libraries, what do you see, 5-10 years down the road? I know sometimes, especially in a year like 2020, it's hard to see past next week. Before we started recording, I was talking about taking it hour by hour. But if you had anything to share about what you see as the future of libraries, what would you share?
The future is bright. It's bright because libraries understand. We've always evolved. We've evolved since the Alexandria Library, and how we serve our communities. We have libraries already going beyond. We have libraries across the country that have social workers on staff, that have re-entry programs for recently released felons, that have business innovation centers, that have tech hubs, that have creator spaces that are critically essential to their community's economic development. Libraries are just going to continue to be the incredibly valuable resource that they are. They're going to continue to be the community anchors. They're going to continue to be that center for democracy, to bring, people from the community from birth to death, and providing them with absolutely everything they can possibly imagine. So libraries are going to be, as always, they should be, they are a critical resource within their communities. Many libraries are second responders. Many libraries offer, opportunities that cannot be met anywhere else. So the future is bright. The future is just going to get better. And I believe strongly that the more and more librarians that get, that develop that natural foresight, that have that opportunity, will be able to really plan, for anything that can happen, and be ready and resilient and robust to serve their communities.
Yeah, it really is empowering them as leaders in their community. And I love working with your teams and your groups, because librarians, first and foremost, as you said earlier, are wicked smart. They're smart. And so, not that not everyone that comes to us is smart, don't get me wrong, but librarians are like a whole nother level, like almost intimidating smart, but also humble and willing to learn, and as we say, unlearn and relearn. And I just think that librarians can model this behavior for people as well. I mean, don't you think? It's like, because you were starting to say, like, we have educated incapacity just like every other field. And I think, you know, people see librarians as a resource for the truth and for information. And in a world where we have fake news and alternative facts, I mean, we worked through this issue during our, you know, most recent training with you all. You know, what role do librarians play in libraries as an institution within a democracy when there's sort of this war on the truth?
Oh, absolutely. You know, and we've been pursuing that on many different levels in the public and academic libraries that, you know, there's so much data out there. There's so much information that one of the tools, one of the descriptors I give to librarians, we're information navigators. We're concierge of finding the right information, and you know, information that is authoritative. That's always been. I'm not going to give you. Google is fine, but you need the librarian to actually disseminate the information that's on Google to determine whether or not it's authoritative.
Yeah.
So librarians continue, and that's something, you know, that is deeply embedded in each and every one of us, is that we believe in the accurate and truthful information, and we are able to, you know, discern what is authoritative.
Yeah.
And really it's something that is just embedded in it, because librarians don't go into libraries to become wealthy. we're public servants. It's almost like a calling.
Yes.
It's almost like a calling, because you want to put things in the hands of people that will help them in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, another sort of parallel with Foresight. Like, I feel like a lot of my role is to do that too, is to like give people the tools and methodologies to realize that we're all creating the future every day with the actions we take. It's just really equipping people to be able to do that more purposefully, more aspirationally, and more collaboratively. And I couldn't think of better partners than librarians and the library community. So that's really awesome. So folks that are listening to this recording will likely be at different sort of places in their Foresight journey. What advice would you give maybe to someone who is sort of like you were a few years ago? You sort of just happened upon this field, or maybe even further into your journey when you went after that grant. And like, so I guess my question is, like, you could talk about advice as well, but I'm wondering, like, what made you get up one day and say, I'm going to bring Foresight to all of the librarians? Like, did that just happen overnight one day? I mean, like, so what came into you, and like, how can someone else sort of learn from that experience?
Well, because I think I know everything, and I think people should learn what I learned. No, there goes that librarian. Because it is about, see, part of my position is very unique. Division Director of Library Development. Many people think that it's fundraising, but my job is to identify tools, to identify initiatives, to identify processes, to identify anything that will help our librarians better serve their communities. And I did have a bit of, you know, foresight thinking, because I was previously in corporate and other experiences, that I knew the value of, you know, you have to always be, you know, 10, 20 steps ahead of your competitor.
Right.
And I sometimes view that librarians need to be 10, 20, 30 steps ahead of what their communities need. And I just saw this, and of course, you know, there's a few of us in the library community. My colleague Peggy and Stacy Aldrich from the Hawaii State Library, who's a futurist. We have this, we came into the profession already having this thinking. And it was just, you know, meeting that experience at the Futures Conference was just like, I just, you know, again, I stalked you. But I just see the value of it. This was exactly what we needed. This is exactly, you know, what I feel that every librarian in the country should have.
Yeah.
It was just like the right thing at the right time, and the opportunity, because we already had a grant and we were looking for the next level of the training that we're doing for transformation for librarians. And it was a no-brainer. It was just the perfect fit.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was talking with our project director at IMLS, and she was looking over something. She goes, I want to do this. I'm like, well, you can, just give us the grant. It's not that easy.
Yeah,
But,
I know.
more and more people, like at our levels, we have the chief officers of state library agencies who had the experience. One of the gentlemen that I met at my cohort in Detroit ended up in a pro bono project from Capgemini, working with the chief officers of state libraries to develop a report for the future of libraries. I mean, who would have had that partnership and had that opportunity to have an international strategy firm do this for us? So I think the more I just spread the word, the more I just, like, you know, darken people's doorsteps. And I think the more and more that people get in our profession, we get exposed to it. And as we get exposed to it, our ALA guts, American Library Association, Public Library Association, as more and more of these people get exposed to this, they're going to realize that this is incredily important.
Right. So
I veered way off, didn't I?
Say again?
I veered way off of what you asked me.
No, it's perfect. Because I do think, you know, someone listening could follow that path. I mean, essentially, you're saying, you know, recognize you are where you're at and use the resources that are at your disposal.
Mm-hmm.
We often sort of tell people, think about the spiel on the airplane. You know, if you are traveling with someone, put your mask on first, because we have a lot of folks come to us and say, I don't have a position like Dawn has. I don't necessarily have a sphere of influence, but yet you do have a sphere of influence. And it really begins with yourself and modeling this behavior. And then being creative and being sort of like a bulldog about it, right? And not letting it go and telling people and explaining. And then people are going to think you're crazy, just to bring it full circle to what you shared at the beginning.
Yeah. And I know that they know I'm crazy, but it's personally, it's really has, you know, I'm one of those people who thinks I know everything. I don't. But it really changed the way going through the training was very specific, and it really changed the way I approach problems and issues, and it really gave me the tools to be able to do it more effectively. And that's why I felt it was so important for my staff to be trained, because of just the nature of the work that we're in, that it's not just about the organization, it's about their personal growth and development, the way they're approaching things, the way they're looking at things. It's so incredibly important.
So true. And that's what we try to share with people in terms of like why capacity building is so important. Because right now it's easy to just, you know, hire a consultant to come in and do this work for you. And there's value in that. But ultimately, if you don't invest in your own capacity building around Foresight, in your team's capacity building, it's probably not going to be a very useful effort. It won't stick, right?
And I'm so glad you just said that, because the tools that we're developing in our toolbox, we want libraries and their communities to come up with their own strategies. They don't need, you know, a high-paid consultant come in who doesn't know anything about their community, knows nothing about their organization, to say, well, you should do this, and no, we're trying to empower our libraries that they can develop their own strategies.
That's fantastic.
Can develop their own path forward.
And that ownership in that process is the difference between success and failure. It's the difference between a plan sitting in a 3-ring binder on a shelf collecting dust versus it actually being implemented and accepted by a community.
And I say all the time, if I'm not failing at least once a day, I'm doing something wrong. I have embraced failure as a badge of honor.
That's so awesome.
But you know, kidding aside, I've been learning so much more from that on a personal level and a professional level.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And now everyone knows why we wanted to spend this time chatting with you. You, as always, are a breath of fresh air. Your passion, this is what people say to me, you're so passionate about Foresight. And I feel the same passion coming from you, Dawn. And I hope you know what an impact you've made, not just in your community amongst librarians, but back to us at the Future School in Kedge. This is not an easy job, as you know, doing it on the front lines. People think you're crazy. You're fighting against systems that are in place that really reward short-term thinking and quick wins. And so you're sometimes working against pretty substantial odds. And so when we have someone like you within our community and our ecosystem that not only gets it, but has taken it like a million steps forward beyond what we would have even thought possible, you're just amazing, and you're an inspiration to us. And we hold you up as an amazing example of how Foresight can be completely integrated into someone's personal and professional life. So you're amazing. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and the feeling is mutual. I view this as a partnership, and I'm going to, however way I can do it, to continue to bring this to librarians and their stakeholders across the country. I'm going to do it. And I wouldn't want any other team with me than you, Frank, Nicole. It's just been an incredible experience.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I know that everyone listening hopefully learned a ton of stuff and is also inspired by the work that you're doing. Whether you're part of a library system or, within a completely different sector, there are things here that you can apply to your own Foresight journey. So we're so happy that you joined us for our Create offering this month. Tune in every month as we bring another Foresight practitioner in to share the good, the bad, and the ugly about their Foresight experience, so that we can all continue to democratize the future together. Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.